In a nutshell, what he's saying is I'm back home. All right, that's exciting for me, it's surreal. So when I say I'm happy to be here, I mean what I say and say what I mean. I'm thrilled to be here because this is my stomping grounds. It's bittersweet. Just beyond the doors out there was the Indianapolis Tennis Center where I taught professionally for years. Met my wife there, proposed just about 500 yards, if not that from here. It's all bulldozed now and it's shipped to Atlanta. And I also worked at NIFS at 5 a.m. I had the graveyard shift, the morning shift to open this place up by 5:15. So it's really exciting to come back. Taught for 20 years, got away from higher ed. It just wasn't for me. It didn't go to what I thought it was. And I said it had to be something pretty special to bring me back, all right? And it was, all right? So if you know Dr. Bahamonde, he was my master's advisor and my dissertation chair. And if you heard, I have a little tennis background. His expertise is the biomechanics of tennis. So we got along swimmingly, all right? So it's a great time to come back. He's the one that really convinced me to come back. There's my credentials. If you have any questions about what I do, that's our roadmap today. If you were to, if I were to pull this down, there's 80-some slides. Don't panic. Most of them are just pictures I'm clicking through, or you have handouts, all right? So I'm very thorough. I'm one of those like, oh, what if I forget to say something? It's kind of a crutch for me to make sure I printed out the handouts, which I did, all right? So feel free to ask questions at the end. There's going to be some things that we spend more time on than others, very intentional. So I like me a good movie, so pay attention, movie buffs. What we do at the beginning ties to something at the end. You don't know which one it is, but if you're a sleuth, you go to the movies and you're like my wife, like I figured it out. I'm like, shh, just keep it to yourself, all right? So there's a little foreshadowing, all right? So just across the way, it's no longer there. Our state championships, so hitting with pro players and stuff, this is going to be related to what we talk about today, all right? So it's not braggadocious. If there was, there'd be other things I could put up about me, all right? So I love to play the game Monopoly, but it's not on here, all right? So this is stuff that pertains to what we do today. I have worked with pro athletes. Probably out of those three, the one that's most known to you is the middle, Rajiv Ram from Carmel, Indiana, two-time state champion. He's played in the Olympics, won a silver medal with Venus Williams, if you've heard of her. He's also, his biggest claim to fame, besides being a friend of mine, all right, I know that he puts that on his resume, is he won the US Open 3 times in a row. So if you walked in the room and said, hey, I've won a major in tennis, and then to do it 3 times in a row, it's hard to do three things in a row any given year, especially at that high level, all right? Not this year, he lost, all right? So he didn't get to 4 times, but anyway, so Rajiv Ram, so yes, I'm a sport dietitian. Hospitals are smelly. I'm a germaphobe, so as a dietitian, I do not want to work in a hospital, right? So I've switched my practice, if you will, having my own business in sport nutrition. You'll see why that comes into play, all right? I'm also a professional Lego builder. I get paid to go to shows and do my own displays. So I already showed you this. This is the original prototype of that. It doesn't have the stadium court yet. I'm still working on it. I got other things. I got 2 adorable kids. There's the food guide pyramid. Of course, a dietitian's going to build that. If you have Lego yourself and you've seen the Pyramid of Giza, Lego copied that from me. If you don't, Google it, all right? If you have the Pyramid of Giza at home, I had the original. There it is, all right? Pretty cool, huh? Volleyball comes into play. There's California IA. That's probably my most famous one. When I say famous, air quotes, people like take selfies with me. There's, if you've ever watched Lego Masters, the TV show, most of them are down to earth, the jerks. They're not in the video, so I didn't take pictures with them, all right? And then last year's winners, all right? Board member. The main reason I pulled that up, it's a volunteer position, and where we're starting now, we're starting to do the lecture while you're here today, all right, and where we're going. What keeps me up at night? It relates to my dissertation, which I did here. Dr. Bahamonde, said I had to pick a topic, and it's been a week, 2 weeks, and Bahamonde was probably like, what's taking you so long, Brian? You're usually on top of things. Did you forget about your deadline? And I just kept, in his mind, it was probably I kept, passing the buck, ignoring it, as I literally had no idea. He finally said a phrase that resonated with me. What keeps you up at night? Misinformation. Makes my job tough, all right? It's everywhere, especially with the advent of the internet, things of that nature. The B word, I can't believe I'm going to cuss, say a bad word in front of you, blog. If you have a blog, I'm sure it's adorable. Just keep it to yourself and do not put nutrition information. Because my role on the board is being the kind of head, like central station where everything funnels to me. And if people are going to be on their scope of practice based on what a dietitian can do and non-dietitian cannot do, scope of practice, I refer to the federal government, and then it's out of the hands, all right? So it could be fine, criminal, even if they didn't intend harm, if it's seen as potential harm, goes there, right? So I'm not a bad guy, I'm not a snitch, I'm just protecting the field, making my life easy, all right? There's a lot of misinformation out there, always has been in all fields. Nutrition, it makes my life tough, all right? So let's see how much misinformation is out there, shall we? Just a second, a little thirsty. I'm not sponsored by Coke. It might surprise you to see a dietitian drink Coke, but it's because you have misinformation in your head. All right, so I'm going to just answer these. The explanations thereof, I have a nutrition class you can sign up for and learn all about it. You just got to trust me for now. I don't have time to teach. I'm here for another reason. But this is a great example of misinformation. Eating too much fat causes obesity. You want to know the answer, right? No, it doesn't. Moving on. Protein should be the majority of one's food intake, especially athletes. That's also false, all right? Caloric restriction is the ideal classic tool for weight loss. That's a big fat false as well, all right? If it wasn't, I would have showed up in a cape, not my dietitian coat. Nutrition most of the time is not the hero, all right? If it was, I'd probably be doing book signings right now and not being here. But caloric restriction, if I go back and change it to caloric restriction is the ideal classic, and let's say I just wrote is the way. It's not even the way, all right? Caloric restriction is a bad idea. Why? This picture shows a little bit. I did say I wouldn't teach much. I got to teach this. I can't do nothing because I like the picture. That's a train, all right? You'll learn how to, air quote, train your body to become a penny pincher. If you're not giving the calories that it needs just for basic BMR, it's going to hold on to energy better. And your body already does a fabulous job of storing calories. Don't give it a reason to store more. So if you're we're in that warm-up phase, you're trying to get to know me, and hopefully you're not like, I like this guy. He just drank Coke, and he said I can eat more than I thought I could. Stick with me, it gets better, all right? This is like the prologue, if you will, of a great musical, all right? Carbs are good, sugars are bad. Guess what? Another false, all right? Those are synonyms. Sugars, carbs, same thing. But the world wouldn't make you think that, all right? So there, I'm doing a little teaser. If you want to see the rest of those bullets, sign up for my classes, all right? Proper nutrition is the major player. I already covered that. False. What could it be? It's that lady running the whole time. If you go to back, she's been running the whole time throughout this little intro. Physical activity is king, all right? That's what you're paying attention to, all right? So there's a little anecdote of misinformation. Now we go back in 2001 when I graduated from Marian University way back when. Took about 6 months off before I did my master's. Started the master's, and there was misinformation everywhere. As a tennis pro, teaching all the time. So I prefaced that, and he put in the intro, I am a tennis coach, professional tennis instructor. So I'm not above them, superior. These are my brothers and sisters, all right? I have been a coach a long time, so I'm not talking ill of them. I just see it all the time. Give out misinformation, such as, anybody know who those players are? They're on the WTA Tour. Nice ladies, all right? They gave me permission to put their photos up, all right? And where we're going eventually, the reason we're going this, there's a myth of what body type you have to be, all right? A little spoiler alert, what I'm about, what my dissertation is about, right? If you really want to read it, it's over there. I think the only people that read it are, I think Bahamonde read it. Just kidding, of course he did. And then maybe God and my wife. Nobody else has really read my dissertation, all right? But I do have it available if you want more information, but that's what one of your handouts is. We're going to talk about the qualitative analysis side. So when I tell the world, I told you earlier I'm a sports dietitian, what is that telling the world? I'm an expert in eating disorders, disordered eating. I have to be. It runs rampant in that field, all right? So that's kind of where we're going, and it begins with body image, all right? These are pro players. There's pro players back in 2014 when I defended my dissertation. This was the exact slide I used then. These were the champions, the Orange Bowl, the Super Bowl of tennis, all right? Best of the best. I don't know these players personally, all right? But that was kind of the trend that they look like. Now for my training, I'm not going to point out who, but or which ones, but there's some signs there that, potentially they could be going a route of not understand physiology. I can't label them anorexia. That's not in my scope of practice. But I can notice telltale signs like, they might have misinformation, may not be eating enough, especially for the amount of calories they need to burn. Little old me, first impressions, everything, right? You might think, oh, he's a little guy. I'm 5'6", all right? But on my busiest days, I have like 4,000 calories, all right, of all the things that I'm doing, tennis, golf, never really sitting down. I hate to sit down. I get fidgety, all right? So the point is, they could use a lot of calories based on just pictures and what I've read about them. That was then, guess what? It's still pervasive now, all right? That was 2015. Here it is now. The last, same body type, same looking. So I'm not knocking them. I know nothing about them. But what I'm pointing out, there's a trend. In my world of tennis, if you've at the men's tour and the women's tour, there's all different body sizes and shapes, but not at the junior tennis level, which is the issue, all right? And I know others, please know I'm not just looking at pictures and making assessments, all right? It's what got my attention back in 2001, like, why is everybody at the junior level all look the same, the thin model types that they think they should look like because they'll be better at tennis, and who's perpetuating that? The tennis coaches, because one of the major themes is if you're lighter, you're faster, you're going to kick some butt. That's not true. I'm pretty light. I'm pretty fast. These are not shoes. These are wheels, all right? That's how I survived college tennis. I'm not on the pro tour, so there has to be something more than that, all right? So the point is, there's some kind of trend. So the myth is you don't have to look like that to play pro tennis, but yet at the junior level it looks like it. And there's another myth buster. I've had the privilege of hitting next to Serena Williams. She's intimidating. If I ever hit a ball on her direction, I was like, I ain't getting it, you're getting it. I'll pay you $100, you go over there, right? She just give you that look of interrupting her practice. She never did that, but still, she's like an NFL athlete running back, fleet of foot, but very lean and heavy. That term is sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times, people don't want to like that. If you've ever had a class with me, you'll see a phrase, a common teaching that'll say 6 months from now, a year from now, it would be awesome of like, hey, do you remember me? And you're like, it was the best class I've ever had. I'm like, oh, you're so flattering, I appreciate it. And then I'll go on to say, you look heavier, bravo. That goes against what we're used to in this world, right? How could I say that? I'm not saying I hope you're out of shape, fat, obese, whatever term people might use. Leaner also means heavier. Lean tissue is heavy, right? So that's why I could say that. More of a better of yourself. Nobody's at the perfect ideal place. You're a snapshot of where you are now, not your genetic potential. So yes, I want you to be heavier. Heavier does not mean slower. But there's a lot of misinformation at the tennis level. And that's where I spend my fight, and that's where we're going now, right? That was then. Quickly bringing it up to kind of where we're at now and what opportunity I have for you students that hopefully are inspired. So Baha Monday, being the rigorous person he is, I had to do a lit review. I had to put keywords in, and every time there was an update, I had to go research it and write basically an abstract just to prove that I did it. I'm a short guy, but I took a picture of all the things that I read. Some made the cut, some didn't. It was up to my knees on both sides. A lot of articles I poured through that even had a remote chance to connect what I'd write in the dissertation, disordered eating, body image, misinformation among tennis. This right here is the opening statement in my dissertation. That summarizes most every article that I read, some way, shape, or fashion. So I'll give you just a few seconds to read it. All right. The next slide adds more to it. All right, I won't necessarily spend as much time, but it basically says the same thing on here, right? That there's misinformation everywhere, especially we're bombarded what's good and what's not, all right? Type of thing. So there are some handouts provided. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You'll see why, all right? I'm not so concerned about the past, but most of what we're doing today is why are we here? Instead of, hey, I'm asked to present, what can I do for the students, what you can do for the world, make a name for yourself, because that's why you're in college, right? A lot of times people ask, what are you going to college for? Well, to get a high-paying job. It's a means to an end. Well, hopefully you think a little beyond that type of thing. So here we go. So I made a huge Excel sheet, right? and it was color-coded because I love me some color coding. And I went through every single, kind of topic. These are the topics that appeared most that I focused on. So anything that had body image, I focused on it, all right? And the biggest summary is the statement you see there, all right? So I've already said that a few times because it's the single strongest predictor of DE, disordered eating. A handout you should have picked up, it's the white one, I believe. It describes what disordered eating is, all right? So you can look at that at your leisure as I throw terms around. Eating disorder is the most severe of disordered eating. To give you an example, if the definition is there, but an example is, if you're like me, you've figured out I like movies. If I go to the movies and I smell the popcorn and my adorable daughter, yeah, we're already getting popcorn. Wife, get the tickets, find our seats. I don't care where we sit, we're getting popcorn. She's yelling. I don't hear her. I hear her, but I don't hear her. We just had lunch. I know, but it smells amazing. Let's get some popcorn. I'm not satisfying hunger. That is not normal eating, all right? So how that is different than disordered eating is if you're doing behaviors, you're avoiding food, for example, for the whole purpose of weight management, wrong or right, all right? Does that make sense? All right, so we're moving on. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. You have a definition. That's another big piece, all right? Adolescents, getting when they're young. You're going to see a big part of that later today, kind of where I come to a crescendo, if you will. Adolescence, I defined it as basically age 12 to 17, right? They're all over the place, all the different, as you can imagine, authors over the years doing research papers, the other experts that were, I don't know if I can call myself an expert, but certainly more than I was then, but all the experts that preceded me that there was all different type of operational definitions. So basically when you're going through growth and development, so it could be as early as 3rd grade, all right, for females, all right, so 9 years old and higher. So there was a big piece focused on the young people. Not that I can't help older people, but younger is where we need to get at, and you'll see that at the end. Athletes, all right, Dr. McKeskey, if you've ever known him, a lot of you I think have after his time, but a professor I had here taught me everything I know about exercise physiology, and how it's defined an athlete is anybody that goes above and beyond that's needed for normal daily physical activity, all right, for function, all right. So yes, athletes are a great application of that, all right, but the one that he gave that resonates and still sticks with me is a single mom or dad, all right. If anybody has experienced that, your mom or dad would go to one job at 6 in the morning, maybe stay till 2 o'clock, and then they get off and go to another job and work till like 9 to 10 o'clock at night, 2 jobs just to make ends meet. That's an athlete because, spoiler alert, they need more calories, more vitamins of all types, just like a pro athlete would, all right? So there are individual differences in needs, but the point is they're an athlete. They're the ones that's most likely to be impacted by what we're talking about today, all right? Hence, I had to start somewhere. Dr. Bahamende, what keeps you up at night? When we were doing the dissertation topic, misinformation, he had me funnel it down, and I said athletes. He's like, that's not specific enough. Well, I like tennis. He's like, you're getting closer. And then I was like, well, all right, tennis in Indiana. I almost did all the tennis, was going to survey all the tennis coaches in the United States. Sounds ridiculous now. I get it, I know. But thankfully I had Bahamende to reel me in. It's like, no, that's too much, all right? So let's look at that research that I did, and most importantly, how it connects here. I'd be remiss if I didn't hit here lean emphasized sports. The most common one in the literature is gymnastics. Wrong or right, and that's the key, wrong or right, it emphasizes leanness. However, what's very critical about this definition is leanness does not mean how maybe an exercise science major would and certainly how I would define it. Lean emphasized, you have a lot of lean tissue, which means you'd be heavier, like kind of like Serena Williams type. The world, and especially other authors, define lean emphasized sport as you have to be lean, skinny to perform well. So gymnastics, ice skating, dance, tennis, all right, lean emphasized sports, all right. So lean emphasized sports isn't necessarily a good thing because, again, right or wrong, as I pointed out earlier, just because you're skinny and little doesn't mean you're going to be a great tennis player. I know that for a fact. Last night I mowed down some really, really lean 8th graders, 9th graders. I destroyed them at lessons last night. So it's not all it is. There's more to it than that. All right? So this one is not on your handout because we're going to spend a lot of time on this later. As you might guess, a professor, that's a piece education, but it's not as simple as standing up here and talking about it. So you're going to see how I operationally define and do education of this. All right. So there's the title, all right? So that's what it was. My research started with, I made my own survey, all right? It was really a test, an assessment, but nobody wants to take a test. So when I would send out through an email, electronic version, and it collected data, would you like to take my survey, questionnaire, right? And then I just went through and I graded it, wrong or right. I collected a lot of demographics. I found a lot of interesting stuff between males and females. One of the big findings, this isn't going to spoil alert because it's not on a slide later, but there was no difference among people that had a teaching license or didn't have a license, certain degrees. Basically, everybody was unknowledgeable. There was no one type of person that stood out, except dietitians, right? Yeah, there's no other dietitians that were the coach at the time. It might have changed then, but at the time I was the only tennis coach, dietitian, Ph.D. in the nation, all right? So I can't do it all, and nor should I have to. So there has to be a way. I'm not by saying that you have to be a dietitian to dole out nutrition information. But what I am saying is it was not really a surprise to me. It matched the research, but there's no surprise to me that there was a lot of misinformation in the thing because they didn't have the training, all right? Another big piece of my research was how confident are you in your answer? So they'd answer a question, and then the very next one, how confident, there's the scale you see ahead of you. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to be one to read to you, have this you can look at. Yeah, you'll see the interesting findings that came up with this. And most importantly, what we're doing today, spoiler alert, if you saw the very first slide, which I went through it over pretty quickly so we can get a head start, very first slide showed the flow. And when it researched, it said past and present. I'm not going to spend any time on the present. Why? It's the same as the past, right? This repeated then. It matched what I did in 2015, and it continues to be the same thing. This NET survey, nutrition, eating disorder, and tennis NET survey, I had different iterations. I've done different things with it, and I keep finding the same information over and over. So guess what? I'm not doing it anymore. I've gone a different direction. I didn't really feel like it was helpful. Found a lot of good data. I got to present at national conferences for American College of Sports Medicine, but again, I really felt like this is a waste of time. I keep saying the same things. It's not really contributing to the literature, which if in this research seminar, that's a common thing. If you go to somebody like, hey, I would like to do research, that's the first rule. Don't do research that's already been done. It's not going to contribute to the field. Go a different direction. I learned that here, and I applied it. All right. So I've already talked about that. I did a quantitative and qualitative, so numbers and then qualitative. I'm going to spend a lot of time on the qualitative. It's the most important and probably something you haven't done as much with. All right. So it was all volunteer. I sent out emails, the best system. Everybody reads their emails. But I actually got a good number, all right, all the athletic departments. That's kind of what I did. And then left it up to them to contact. So if you played tennis, or if you know anybody that played tennis around 2015 or 16 in the state of Indiana, and in high school, their respective coaches would have been a part of that pool, all right? So this is a really cool article, all right? It's kind of a seminal article, gold standard that Dr. Monday had pointed out to me. And this is what I had to get, or the dissertation was a waste of time. He's like, you have to get at least this number of people. So to apply it, the size of the population, tennis coaches in the state of Indiana, in 2015, there was 338, which means all the way down here, there was actually 79 people that responded, so I met the quota. So with a 10% power level, which is pretty strong, I won't bore with more than that. So the research could continue. So it's legit, all right? It's not the same as saying significant, that's statistics, but there's a protocol. Again, if you're going to do research, which is kind of the impetus for something like this, these are other things you consider besides just what you want to do. Make sure you can get a population, get enough to make enough people, respondents, to make it strong, all right? So good, we can move on, all right? So I went to 5 domains, all right? So 5 categories of information. So carbohydrates was one of the categories, things of that nature. And then there they are, all right? So all the things, hey, tennis coaches of Indiana, how much do you know about macronutrients, carbs, fats, protein? The etiology, the formation of anorexia, bulimia, right? So we've already seen one of those. Body image issues is one of the biggest triggers for it to happen. I got to emphasize, we all have body image issues. We all do. If not, we're pretty arrogant people, There's nothing wrong with me. I'm beautiful, all right? I'm going to stand like this today. I'm never going to turn around because you'll see my bald spot. That bugs the crap out of me, all right? I have a body image with that. What I emphasize is just because somebody has a body image issue does not mean they automatically go to eating disorders or disordered eating. It's not that simple, thank goodness. In fact, most people don't. However, this presentation, where it's been going and where it's going to continue to go is who has that, the ones that do go to that direction resort to food. All right, so there's the 5 areas. The results, I'm just going to go straight to the results, all right? As you might guess, it's kind of copyrighted, the net survey, so I'm not showing you any more than what you saw there, but there was a lot of questions. It's evolved over time. The quantitative. Overall, people that I got % correct, those are all the things that I graded, if you will, all right? So there was 10 questions per domain. I did a simple, how many did you get correct? I had a threshold based on research past, and yes, it matched the past research of, they didn't hit the adequate score of 75%, all right? Now, I would have liked 80% or higher, but just how many questions I had, it had to be 75% because I had 4 questions in some cases. So bottom line, you make 75%, like, well, that's pretty good. No, there's misinformation everywhere. It means there was enough 25% that they didn't know or more, that's just too much to add to the pool, all right? Especially the young adolescent groups that they're working with, all right? So this is what I looked for, all right? And that's kind of what I was talking about too, based on one of the most well-known, Torres McGahee. She's just I don't know how she has time to do anything else. I see her published all the time in high-level journals, so she knows her stuff. And what's important to emphasize, she's not a dietitian. So I'm not as elitist as you might have think. I don't want to give off that impression. So there's plenty of people can do good work in this area. Doesn't have to be a dietitian. All I'm saying is research shows you usually, if you're not a dietitian, they're spreading the most information. If you want to know what that population might be, but I never want to alienate a certain group because there's plenty of good groups out there, right? So overall, as I said earlier, there's no significance between education or teaching license. It didn't matter, all right? So it's worth emphasizing. And this is where I start to get sad, all right? It still bums me out, even though it was so long ago, because it continues to this day. Like I said earlier, hinted at, even though the first slide says research past and present, we're doing both at the same time. There's no need to go through present research studies because it shows it matched what I did, and mine matched what people did before me. I certainly was not the first in this field looking at this topic, misinformation. And by the way, it's not just in tennis, that's my background, but all the literature review, any sport, it's plagued by this, misinformation. There's no one athlete or coach of a team, of a sport, that knows more than others. So volleyball, basketball, football, cheerleading, dance, they're all lacking the information. And why do I care? Because it triggers, and this is a key part of this performance. As I look up, we're about halfway through, at least time-wise, all right? We're almost done with this, all right? But as we go through, spoiler alert, it's all of them. And why do I care? It leads to disordered eating disorders, all right? There's other factors, but that's the biggest trigger. So if somebody didn't know about vitamin C's in orange juice or calcium's not in milk, that wasn't on my survey. I don't care about that. Somebody doesn't know about some nutrition stuff, like there's vitamin C and there's vitamin B1 in my favorite food, pork, it's not a big deal. We look at more heavy-hitting stuff that relates to disordered eating, such as that what I put earlier. If you eat too much fat, it's quite okay, right? Sugar doesn't cause this to happen, all right? All these kind of things. So there's the nuts and the bolts, all right, if you look at the tables, all right? This one, if you see the second bullet, again, I'm not the teacher that reads to you, so you can read at all these. This one that had the lowest mean score. That's the most depressing. If you have a class with me ever, you'll learn carbs are king. Carbohydrates are the most significant, important nutrient you need for a lot of reasons. Just good old-fashioned physiology, all right? Mainly because we don't store a lot of our person, so we have to get it every day. Only the average score, getting it correct out of 100%, 57%. So if I'm a professor, I gave a test, imagine the next day, I gave a test, and all of you got 57%. I'm going to be pretty depressed. Like, man, I'm a horrible teacher, or you're horrible students, or both, somewhere in the middle, all right? And then also, they're pretty confident. 4 was the highest you can be. 4 is, I should teach the class. I'm so confident in the answer I just gave. 3.9. So that classic, they're getting it wrong, but they think they're right. That's a big issue, which means what? There's a little inference done here, I got some latitude. I can assume then what? Well, then they're probably giving that information out if they think it's correct, all right? At least they knew how eating disorders were formed. They'd heard of it, maybe from documentaries, TV shows, who knows, but they had an idea how etiology started, all right? How you develop anorexia, things of that nature. This was the worst, the signs and symptoms of anorexia. They don't recognize in their field. Folks, if you haven't followed along, that's the worst possible news I could get. And match previous literature. They don't realize there's somebody, Tommy, Susie, Mary, Stephanie, whoever, right in front of them needs help, and neither party knows they need help. Now, some might say, Brian, they're a coach. That's not their job. I totally get it. But the literature says anybody can at least recognize signs and symptoms and refer, right? Just like every year when I'm a coach, whether it's at college level, middle school level, I take, and rightfully so, I watch videos, and even some of the videos I actually helped make long ago. I'm watching videos on concussion protocol, recognize signs and symptoms. I'm not qualified to diagnose somebody with a concussion. That's related to the other experts. But it is my role as a coach. I could get fired if I know, that person has a sign or a symptom of a concussion, but I let them play, I didn't refer them to place, so it's no different than this, all right? So that's where it's scary. They would recognize somebody's helping them, because in my Crystal Palace, my beautiful office right next door in the very place that I went to school at, it's fun being in the natatorium building, and nobody ever comes to see me in that room, all right? So it's up to the coaches to see things and refer them to the right places. I'm not going to see them, all right? Scope of practice, we'll get to that a little bit later, right? Treatment, prevention, same kind of song and dance. So there's really not a lot of good news here. However, stick with me. I'm not a doomsday type of person. It gets better, right? So there's the bad news. You guys ready for the good news? Let's go. Let's play well, okay? Qualitative, these is what you have in front of you. I think I put it in yellow, so you can read it at your leisure. I don't expect to do this now. You wouldn't have to read this to follow along, but what you have before you are scenarios that I made up. I put correct answers in this, all right? So it's qualitatively analyzed, but there's some data in there that I had to plan ahead of time. It was my most fun, it was intimidating at first, but most fun in my dissertation, if I could call it that. Not like playing with Lego fun, but it was fun, enjoyable. So how I set it up was these were the correct answers and incorrect answers. So when you read the scenario number 1, all right, they should have realized there was something wrong with energy calculations, right? A number of things. So I look at their quantitative, their written response, open-ended question, and then I, as the analyzer, decided, did they get that correct? Did they recognize us or not? And what I found a lot of times, you'll see this on some slides, most of the things they'd even notice that was the issue. For example, to put this in perspective, right? In my field, my training, what should be obvious, so if we came in here and I'm talking and the fire alarm goes off, what's the obvious correct answer? Correct response would be, hey, this is interesting. He's getting the good part, but you're getting out of here. There's a fire. You're going to your exit. What if I got in the crouch position, put the hand over my head, and bent down, and got under that table? That's the wrong response. That's a response for tornado, right? So it was that far off, or to bring this analogy to even more into this, when they didn't even recognize, what if that alarm's going off and there's a fire out there and nobody in here recognizes it? We don't even notice, we don't even hear it. That analogy is what the level of some of these were for my professional training. They didn't recognize that stuff that should stand out. And hopefully when you look at that, you should see some things that stand out, all right? For example, let's go here. Max, right there, his coach is a health nut, all right? It's not his coach. I'm a big fan of a lot of things. Doesn't make me an expert. I'm certainly not giving advice to people, all right? But that's very pervasive, right? Also, caloric intake around 1,800 calories, right? That's another little old me. If I stayed in bed all day, every day, That's not much more than I would need just to lay in bed all day, let alone all the things I'm doing active. So those should be red flags if you have the training. Please know I was going into this not expecting them to know these things, all right? It was done for other spin-off studies to justify why this grant is needed or this education program is needed to show, hey, I'm not making up, I'm not being mean, like, well, they're not a dietitian, they can't get this, because the powers that be, the others would say, they don't know this, but they're going to get it from their major, their other walks of life. And I'm like, no, they're not, all right? So I wasn't out there to get them or prove them wrong. It was a justification that ends to a means, again, to justify this program is needed. They're not getting it elsewhere. What is that program? We're getting there. So I've already covered that stuff, all right? They all went into themes. This is on the tan slide. So at the bottom of the respective tables, it'll show you if it was repeated, like there were 79 responses, right? And I went through, and if it was said 10 to 24% of the time, it would give it a common, all right? And then all the way down, the prevailing theme is over half the people said it, or their responses led me to believe. And then these are themes I came up with based on their responses. So the overwhelming theme on that first one with Max, incorrect or no knowledge of energy and macronutrients, how many needs per day. All right, if you want the nuts and bolts, how to come to those determination, man, that's an exciting conversation, but you'd want to see me after this. So that's kind of what I did. I came up with themes, all right. Yeah, I don't care about that. Discussion, so what? Let's go here. As I've said, number one, I've covered that, right? The most concerning finding is how confident people were in their answers, which again, re-emphasizes very intentionally, re-emphasizes what I've said before. It drives home the point of, oh man, they're probably giving that misinformation out. I really like that piece. I learned it from the Notorious McGahee, the great author that I mentioned earlier today. So as I alluded to earlier, I gave you a spoiler so it can expedite to the next step. I switched directions, all right? It's not because I'm giving up. It's like this isn't helping reporting the news, and it falls in perfectly with what we're doing today. By inviting myself here, I saw an opportunity, right? So this isn't self-serving, all right? But it just is very coincidental that here helps with the problem, educating others. You're my army. I can't do it alone. I'm in my awesome ivory tower over there. You need to be aware of this. That's the first thing research said over and over again is awareness. Like, oh, I had no idea. Right? I had no idea there was so much misinformation. I had no idea people were going to be on their scope of practice. All right, so if any of this, like, oh, I heard this from a coach, they were probably wrong. All right, it's okay. I've been wrong a lot of things. You may not have realized it. All right. So the education piece. So what do I do for education? We saw that earlier. I said that wasn't repeated. I wasn't on your handout for various topics of lit review because we're hitting it at the end. Here we are at the end. So what do you think I do for education? How do I present it other than the traditional professor route? What do you think? I don't mind quiet silence. Professors are used to this. I can just chill. I can do sign language as I wait for the class to respond. Coaching, yes. I coach for a reason. If I produce the next great champion, state champion, national level, great, feather in my cap. But as I alluded to earlier, my research interest is motor skill development. That's why I teach tennis, because there's plenty of research shows the more skillful you are, the more likely to engage in a healthy, physical active lifestyle. Case in point, it's Indiana. It's about ready to get real cold. I'm glad I have other outlets. If I was just a golfer only, well, my physical activity is about ready to die soon. Thank goodness I also have the opportunity to go play tennis. A little more challenging, but there are indoor tennis courts. I find it. So yes, by being around athletes, being a role model, eating normal around people like, hey, he's eating a cookie, and he didn't just balloon up. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe the people I've talked to are wrong, right? How else could I educate? What colors? Does that bring anything to mind? That's the classic colors of Lego. That's why I'm professional Lego. I go to shows, professional builder, not just look what I make. It's not about that. I have scavenger hunts, draws people in at big shows, Brick World Chicago, the Super Bowl of the Lego World, biggest Lego show in the nation. I go to that every year, among some others. The second biggest one, anybody know where the second biggest is? Usually based on attendance, the level of cool stuff you see, here in Indianapolis, every March. So now, starting to get an ear opened, I need volunteers, right? If you have a class with me, you can't do it for obvious reasons, right? But if we never cross paths, you never have any intention to take a class with me,